The story of André Rieu, one of the most beloved and globally recognized violinists, is not just a tale of musical talent, but a journey of resilience, passion, and survival against both personal and physical challenges. Born on October 1st, 1949, in the Netherlands, André grew up in a household that was both disciplined and emotionally austere. His father, also named André, was a famous conductor, admired by orchestras for his precision, yet feared by his children for his strict rules and unyielding expectations. The home, while connected to music, was not a place of warmth or laughter. Love, as a child, André rarely experienced in tangible forms. His mother was intensely focused on academics and technical skills, viewing creativity as a weakness rather than a gift. Whenever a teacher praised André's artistry, it was met with criticism and rebuke at home, making him feel that his creative instincts were a burden rather than a blessing. Being the third of 6 children, André often felt invisible and unsupported, and yet something inside him yearned for expression, a spark of joy that only music could ignite. That spark first took form when, at the age of 5, André met a young violin mentor, an 18-year-old who introduced him not just to technique, but to the emotional depth of music. Through her guidance, he discovered a sense of freedom and resonance he had never known before. Music became more than notes on a page. It became a way for André to feel alive, to experience emotions that his family environment had suppressed. Unlike other children who practiced scales for the sake of perfection, André chased a resonance, the feeling, the life within sound. This early exposure set him on a path that would define the rest of his life, and it planted the seeds for a deep connection to the violin that would sustain him through decades of trials, triumphs, and unexpected hardships. As a teenager, André's passion for waltzes clashed with his father's rigid expectations, bringing emotional and creative friction into his life. His father, who believed in strict adherence to classical forms, saw André's love for dance-inspired music as frivolous, even dangerous to a disciplined musical career. The tension at home forced André to develop resilience and independence early in life, lessons that would serve him in moments far more perilous than family disagreements. In 1968, a defining moment occurred when André chose a companion named Marjorie, whose presence became central to both his personal and professional life. Marjorie's support was unwavering, and she played an essential, often invisible role in managing the business side of André's emerging musical career. Yet, even with love and mentorship, André faced a world that demanded perfection, discipline, and endurance. The applause of audiences, the bright lights of concert halls, and the admiration of critics could never fully replace the void left by an emotionally distant childhood. From an early age, André Rieu learned that music was not only a vocation but a lifeline, a way to assert his identity, to reclaim his spirit, and to connect with the world in a way that was deeply personal and profoundly transformative. That early struggle, set against a backdrop of rigorous training, harsh criticism, and a yearning for expression, laid the foundation for the artist he would become, one whose future triumphs would not only entertain millions, but also inspire them with stories of resilience, love, and unbreakable human spirit as André Rieu moved from childhood into adulthood. His dedication to music only intensified, shaped both by his early exposure to artistic freedom and by the rigidity he had endured at home. By his teenage years, he was no longer just a student of music, but a young man determined to forge his own path. The tension between his personal artistic inclinations and his father's stern expectations remained, creating both conflict and motivation. André's love for waltzes, a musical form associated with joy, dance, and human connection, often clashed with the traditional discipline of classical music imposed at home. His father, who valued precision and control, could not comprehend André's desire to infuse his performances with emotion and playfulness. "I didn't raise you to play waltzes," his father would declare, words that struck deeper than criticism of technique. They were a judgment of his very soul. Yet it was this very tension that helped André develop an unshakable resolve. At the same time, his relationship with Marjorie, the companion who would later become his lifelong partner and manager, provided him with stability and encouragement. She was not only supportive emotionally, but also practical, assisting in managing the growing demands of a musical career. Her guidance allowed André to focus on what mattered most, the music itself. with her steady presence. He began performing in modest venues, small community halls, and even private events, places where music was the center and not the spectacle. These early experiences taught him the importance of connecting with an audience, of making music an intimate and shared experience rather than a display of technical prowess. It was in these formative years that he learned the delicate balance between performance and authenticity, between art and entertainment. André's early professional choices reflected a commitment to human connection over fame or critical acclaim. Despite initial struggles and the absence of family support, he gradually built a reputation for bringing energy, warmth, and joy to his performances. His determination was not simply to master the violin, but to create experiences where audiences could feel the music resonate in their hearts, something that would become the hallmark of his career. By 1978, after years of formal orchestral training and careful cultivation of his craft, André Rieu founded what would later become the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. Beginning with only 12 musicians, this ensemble was not grandiose in appearance, and their performances were modest, yet every note reflected the ideals that André had embraced from his earliest mentor: freedom, expression, and emotional connection. These young musicians traveled to forgotten towns and community halls, performing not for critics or accolades, but for the pure love of music. Their performances were intimate, human, and deeply transformative for those in attendance. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Marjorie handled the organizational and business aspects, quietly ensuring that the logistics of touring and performance were managed efficiently. Her presence allowed André to focus entirely on the artistry, and together they nurtured a vision that would later redefine classical music performance. In those years, André began to understand that music was not just sound, but a medium to heal, to inspire, and to bring people together. Every concert, no matter how small, became a step in a journey toward a larger mission: to make classical music accessible, joyful, and emotionally engaging. The foundation laid during these years would support him through challenges no amount of talent alone could overcome, including later health crises, public scrutiny, and the demands of performing on global stages. These experiences also reinforced André's understanding of the importance of balance, discipline, and care, not in a rigid, punitive way his father had taught, but as a method of sustaining creativity, longevity, and human connection. By the end of his early adult years, André Rieu was not just a violinist or conductor. He was a visionary artist committed to transforming every performance into an experience that touched lives. It was this combination of talent, resilience, and deeply human values that would prepare him for both the heights of global fame and the unexpected crises that lay ahead in his remarkable career. His journey in these formative years set the stage for the creation of the Johann Strauss Orchestra, for international recognition, and for a legacy built not only on musical skill, but on empathy, determination, and the relentless pursuit of artistic truth. By the time André Rieu formally founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra in 1987, his vision for music had fully crystallized, combining technical mastery with profound understanding of human emotion and connection. The orchestra began modestly, again with 12 musicians, but the mission was radical: to restore the joy and heartbeat of classical music while breaking free from the rigid, solemn conventions that dominated traditional concert halls. André was determined to make music an immersive experience, one where audiences could feel invited to dance, smile, and participate rather than remain distant observers. Unlike conventional orchestras, the Johann Strauss Orchestra embraced color, spectacle, and warmth. Instead of stiff black tailcoats and formalities, the musicians wore vibrant attire that reflected the life and energy within their music. Their performances were designed to be as much a visual delight as an auditory one, incorporating lights, movements, and interaction that brought classical music into the present and made it relatable to new generations. Early reactions from critics were harsh. Traditionalists dismissed André's approach as musical pornography and accused him of trivializing the art form with showmanship. Yet, the audiences who longed for connection and joy responded with enthusiasm and overwhelming support. The orchestra quickly gained a reputation for delivering performances that were electrifying, yet deeply moving, offering a rare combination of professionalism and heartfelt emotion. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, André's concerts began attracting international attention. One landmark performance at a European stadium, associated with a major sporting event, exemplified the cultural impact of his vision. As the orchestra's music soared across the arena, even fans who came for football were captivated, pausing, swaying, and clapping as the joyous strains of Waltz transformed the atmosphere. This event became legendary, symbolizing André's ability to bridge worlds, bringing classical music to people who might never have stepped into a traditional concert hall. The commercial success followed, with his recordings topping charts in the Netherlands, Australia, and beyond. Stadiums filled with tens of thousands of fans, and DVDs of performances dominated sales rankings, placing André shoulder to shoulder with mainstream pop icons. Despite these achievements, the maestro faced personal challenges that would test his resilience like never before. In 2010, André was struck by a viral infection that attacked his vestibular nerve, a critical component for balance. For a violinist and conductor, the inner ear is everything. The infection caused relentless vertigo, leaving him unsteady, bedridden, and unable to perform. Tours were canceled, performances halted, and the man who had always embodied control and precision was suddenly vulnerable in the most profound way. Conventional therapies provided little relief, and the prospect of long-term recovery seemed uncertain. It was during this period that André's connection with his fans became unexpectedly vital. An Australian admirer, who had recovered from a similar condition, wrote to him describing vestibular exercises that had aided his recovery. Desperate for improvement, André followed the instructions meticulously. Gradually, balance returned, first unsteady, then firm, allowing him to reclaim his place on stage. This period of recovery was not merely physical. It reshaped his understanding of endurance, care, and the limits of human capability. No longer could he rely solely on willpower or brute force of habit. Each performance became a negotiation between passion and health, between artistry and physical vulnerability. The lessons he learned during this time influenced the way he structured tours, rehearsals, and personal routines for the remainder of his career. André became more deliberate, slower, and conscious of his own needs, without compromising the emotional and visual impact of his performances. His son, Pierre, assumed a more visible role, acting as a guardian, manager, and strategist, ensuring that his father could perform without endangering his health. This dynamic, born from necessity, became an integral part of the orchestra's operation, allowing André to continue delighting audiences while maintaining his well-being. The period of illness, struggle, and gradual return to the stage reinforced a central theme of André Rieu's life. That greatness is not measured solely by skill or fame, but by the ability to overcome adversity, adapt to new realities, and continue creating joy in the lives of others, even when faced with personal challenges that could have ended a lesser career. By the time he fully returned to performing, the combination of experience, care, and strategic management ensured that his music remained not only technically excellent, but emotionally resonant, connecting deeply with fans around the world and reinforcing his legacy as one of the most extraordinary figures in modern classical music. Despite the triumph of his comeback and the global adoration he earned, André Rieu's life was far from free of challenges. While audiences saw only the smiling maestro on stage, behind the scenes, the realities of age, illness, and personal loss constantly tested his resilience. In 2016, tragedy struck when Rieu lost a close companion and longtime trombonist, Rieu Merckx, who had been like a brother to him. The sudden death sent shockwaves through André's world, forcing him to cancel multiple performances across Europe. This was not a matter of illness or fatigue, but of grief, a reminder that human bonds, no matter how strong, are fragile and irreplaceable. André described the loss as an earthquake in his life, an emotional collapse that mirrored, in some ways, the physical vulnerabilities he had faced years earlier. The orchestra, which had always functioned as a musical family, shared in the mourning, yet the burden of moving forward rested heavily on André. It was a period that demanded not only personal strength, but also professional judgment, as he balanced his own grief with the expectations of fans, venues, and fellow musicians. Just a few years later, in 2019, another challenge emerged in the form of severe flu that hit him during an intense tour schedule. The illness brought fever, fatigue, and confusion, yet André insisted on performing, demonstrating his dedication, but also revealing the limits of his physical endurance. These experiences illustrated a fundamental truth, that no matter how talented or disciplined an artist may be, the human body is finite, and the demands of global performance can push even the strongest beyond safe limits. It was during this period that the role of his son, André Rieu, became even more essential. Previously involved primarily in logistics and management, Pierre stepped into a more visible and authoritative role, acting as a safeguard for his father's health and well-being. He became responsible for pacing tours, monitoring medical conditions, and making decisions that balanced performance quality with safety. Pierre's interventions allowed André to continue performing at a high level, but with controlled schedules, rest periods, and careful oversight. This combination of paternal caution and filial support created a new model of touring, one in which personal health and artistry coexisted rather than competed. The culmination of these pressures, however, occurred in March 2024 in Mexico City, when André faced the most severe challenge of his career. Scheduled for 6 sold-out concerts, he experienced a convergence of altitude effects, jet lag, and lingering flu symptoms that made performing physically impossible. After the second concert, André faltered backstage, breathless and feverish, and called Marjorie, his longtime partner and manager, expressing exhaustion and concern. For concerts were ultimately canceled, with over 40,000 ticket holders affected. The scale of the disruption was unprecedented, yet André's response revealed both vulnerability and foresight. Recognizing that continuing at the previous pace could endanger his career, he embraced a new approach to performance management, with Pierre enforcing stricter schedules, limiting international travel, and controlling the intensity and length of concerts. This period of adaptation marked a critical turning point. It was no longer about pushing through adversity at all costs, but about creating sustainable conditions for musical excellence. André's artistic vision remained intact, but the strategy behind the scenes had changed fundamentally. Every performance, rehearsal, and travel plan was now carefully calculated, ensuring that the man behind the violin could continue to inspire without sacrificing his health. By summer 2024, the transformation was visible not only in André's demeanor, but also in the orchestral arrangements and concert pacing. Ballads and slower waltzes were prioritized, while high-energy sections were strategically placed to conserve his strength. Even as the orchestra maintained its signature vibrancy and audience engagement, the changes subtly protected André, allowing him to continue performing without the constant risk of collapse. This combination of human care, strategic adaptation, and artistic integrity highlighted a remarkable lesson: that enduring greatness is not simply about talent or fame, but about understanding limits, accepting support, and making deliberate choices to sustain both personal and professional longevity. In this way, André Rieu demonstrated that the life of an artist is a delicate balance between passion and pragmatism, and that true resilience is as much about adaptation as it is about raw ability. Following the upheaval in Mexico City and the enforced adjustments to his touring schedule, André Rieu entered a new phase of his career, one that balanced the grandeur of international performance with careful attention to health, personal well-being, and long-term sustainability. By 2024, at the age of 75, André had built a career that spanned decades, yet the challenges he faced in recent years fundamentally reshaped the way he approached music and performance. No longer could he rely solely on stamina, repetition, or the sheer force of habit. Every concert required deliberate pacing, measured energy expenditure, and close coordination with medical professionals, rehearsal directors, and his son Pierre. Pierre's role had evolved from logistical support to guardian and curator of his father's performance tempo. He reviewed every venue, flight, and rehearsal schedule to ensure that the physical strain on André was manageable. The orchestral arrangements were subtly modified. High-intensity pieces were limited. Slower waltzes and ballads were emphasized, and moments of audience engagement were strategically placed to allow brief recovery periods. While the changes were mostly invisible to fans, they were essential to maintaining the quality and emotional impact of each performance. The transformation extended beyond logistics and repertoire. André, who had spent decades on the road, began to spend more time at home, reconnecting with personal rhythms that had been neglected during his long tours. His hometown, with its stone streets and quiet gardens, became a sanctuary and rehearsal space, offering a setting where he could practice, reflect, and conserve energy for performance days. Private practice replaced hours of grueling orchestra rehearsals, allowing him to maintain musical precision without exhausting himself physically. The subtle recalibration of his life was mirrored in his stage presence. Audiences noticed changes in his performances. not as a decline, but as a deepening of connection. André engaged more with the audience, paused between pieces for storytelling, and allowed the orchestra to shine with individual solos, sharing the spotlight in ways that brought both intimacy and drama to performance. These adjustments were a testament to his adaptability and artistic intelligence. At the same time, André's health-conscious approach did not diminish the scale or impact of his tours. Shows continued to sell out across Europe and Australia, drawing thousands of fans eager to witness the maestro live. Each performance became a triumph over past adversity, a celebration not only of music, but of resilience, endurance, and the human capacity to adapt. The careful management of his schedule, the involvement of Pierre, and the recalibrated orchestral arrangements allowed André to continue performing at an extraordinary level while safeguarding his well-being, creating a sustainable model for the later stages of a demanding career. This period also highlighted the emotional dimension of André's journey. He had faced not only physical illness, but profound personal loss and grief, from the death of close collaborators to the emotional toll of years spent on the road with limited family interaction. By embracing deliberate pacing, restorative practices, and the support of his family, André integrated these experiences into his performances, giving each note an added weight and emotional resonance. Audiences, consciously or not, felt this depth, sensing the perseverance and humanity behind every bow stroke. In interviews, André openly acknowledged that the experiences had changed him. He no longer perceived himself as invincible. Each concert was both a gift and a challenge. The applause, the adoration, and the spectacle of sold-out arenas were now accompanied by a quiet awareness of his own vulnerability, a recognition that artistry is inseparable from a human body and mind. This awareness, paradoxically, enhanced his performances. By acknowledging limitations and structuring his life accordingly, André maintained the brilliance, energy, and passion that had defined him for decades. The result was a more profound, nuanced, and emotionally engaging experience for audiences worldwide. In essence, the post-2024 phase of André Rieu's career represents a remarkable balance between the demands of global fame and the necessity of personal preservation, showing that the most enduring form of greatness is not simply about skill, technique, or stamina, but about understanding, adaptation, and the intelligent application of care. Through careful management, familial support, and personal discipline, André continues to inspire millions, proving that even in the face of age, illness, and loss, the music and the magic can endure as André Rieu continued to perform in his mid-70s. The evolution of his career highlighted a remarkable combination of artistic ingenuity, personal resilience, and strategic planning. His journey, which had begun with modest community performances and the quiet guidance of early mentors, had transformed into a global phenomenon. Yet the lessons learned through decades of struggle and health challenges informed every aspect of his modern performances. By 2025, Rieu had fully embraced a model that prioritized longevity and audience connection over sheer endurance. The orchestral arrangements were refined to optimize both musical expression and the maestro's physical capabilities. Faster-paced pieces were interspersed with slower, emotive waltzes that allowed him brief moments of recovery while maintaining the emotional arc of the concert. These subtle adjustments were invisible to casual observers, but critical to ensuring that each performance retained its signature brilliance without compromising his health. Pierre Rieu, once a behind-the-scenes manager, had become a central figure in orchestrating every detail of the tours. From scheduling flights and rehearsals to coordinating with medical staff and monitoring André's energy levels, Pierre acted as both protector and collaborator, blending managerial skill with filial care. His presence allowed André to focus on the artistry, secure in the knowledge that logistical and health-related risks were being carefully mitigated. The changes extended beyond musical strategy. André increasingly incorporated moments of storytelling, audience engagement, and personal reflection into his shows. These adjustments were not only practical. They preserved his stamina, but also enriched the audience's experience, creating a deeper, more intimate connection between performer and listener. Fans were treated not just to the technical perfection of violin and orchestra, but to a narrative of human resilience, shared triumph, and emotional depth. This integration of performance and personal storytelling became a hallmark of his recent tours, demonstrating that music is as much about the human spirit as it is about sound. Beyond the stage, André's lifestyle underwent significant changes. After decades spent constantly traveling, performing, and managing an extensive schedule, he spent more time in his hometown, practicing privately and reconnecting with his roots. Stone streets, quiet gardens, and familiar surroundings became not only a sanctuary, but also a rehearsal space, allowing him to maintain skill and precision without unnecessary physical strain. This period of relative calm facilitated reflection on a life filled with both extraordinary achievement and profound personal challenges. André openly acknowledged in interviews that facing illness, loss, and physical limitations had deepened his understanding of music, performance, and human condition. No longer invincible, he approached each concert with a renewed appreciation for the effort required, the fleeting nature of life, and the joy of sharing his art with the world. Financially, the strategy proved successful. Tours continued to gross millions. DVDs and recordings maintained strong sales, and global audiences eagerly anticipated each performance. Yet, the underlying philosophy had shifted from quantity and spectacle to sustainability and meaningful engagement. André's story became an example for artists worldwide, illustrating that careful planning, health-conscious choices, and family support can enable longevity in careers that once seemed dependent solely on youth and endurance. Moreover, the orchestral model he implemented served as an educational template for other musicians, demonstrating that adaptability, collaboration, and sensitivity to human limits can enhance both artistic quality and audience satisfaction. The journey also underscored the emotional dimension of music. André's personal experiences of illness, grief, and recovery were embedded in every performance, giving the music added resonance. Listeners, consciously or not, could sense the depth behind each bow stroke, the human story behind every waltz, and the authenticity in